Well, we're on to the next day because I needed to wait and get the correct pump. I had the wrong pump. Here's the correct one. You can see on this one, I'll get it out in a second, but so the Corsa D1.2, you can see it's a fairly simple one. It doesn't have extra ports, that kind of thing. Now, having the new one has been a help because I've been able to look and check that I've got all of the bolts undone, because there are a lot of bolts to get at. In there and make sure that they're all undone. They're all undone now. I've also taken the front pipe off, which houses the thermostat. So there it is, just there. And what I also found is where I had the engine jacked up, I was jacking it from the side, and what was happening is the engine was actually getting pushed that way, which didn't help getting access and getting that annoying bracket out of the way, which I've managed to get out of the way, and that's made access so much easier. So when you do jack it up, try to jack it up so it pushes that way a little bit, and when it lifts it gives you much better access. So we now need to get the pump off. Now I think probably a rubber mallet might be needed to give it a bit of a tap and just get it free. I'm going to do that now. Here we go, a couple of taps with the rubber mallet and it's come off. Now you can see there's quite a lot of gasket sealant. I'm not sure if that's factory, I don't think that would be. But also if we take a look at the pump, yeah, that's in quite a bad way. Actually, what I want to know is where that chunk of metal's gone. But this does kind of prove that we did need to change this. I am quite concerned where that piece of metal's gone. I'm hoping I can spot it. I can't see how it could have actually gone any further into the coolant system. But I think now what we need to do is clean up this surface, so I use like a Brillo pad, get this surface all cleaned up, get the pipe disconnected. Let's get this pump out. So there's the pump out. Taking the pipe off, that pipe was quite well held on. I'm going to clean that up with a scouring pad now, just to get that nice and clean. I'll just show you the pump that we've taken off here. Put it the right way up, and you can see it's kind of a cardboard component. Has kind of that bit is disappeared, so that's given up completely. You can see actually I can very easy break it, so I think that's just broken down over time, and that's what's happened. But that would explain why we had a coolant problem, and it's why you should catch it early. If you have any sort of coolant warning, you must get it looked at straight away. So I'm going to clean it up and let's get the new one ready. Giving it a good clean, you can see just cleaned it up so that the surfaces will mate nicely. I'll take you in for a closer look just so you can see what it looks like. That's cleaned up as good as I can. I didn't have a degreaser to try and get rid of some of the oil. I have also done a bit of a flushing a bit of water through the system as well, just to try and give it a bit of a clear out, and ready for the new pump to go on. And I think it's about time we got the new pump on with the gasket and get it all in place. The gasket on, See, I've put the pipe on. I need to put the pipe clip on, and I've put all the bolts in, remembering which ones were long and which ones were short. I did make a note which are long and which are short, because there are two different long bolts and one set of small bolts that go around it, and trying to get those correct, because it depends on which ones go all the way through to the timing cover and which ones hold the pump in place. And I've got all of those in place. Now I'm just going to look at the torque spec for this. They weren't mega tight when I came to undo them, so I don't think they've got super strong torque. It is worth just checking to make sure you're not going to over torque them, because although we want it to be watertight, we don't want to over tighten and cause damage. I'm going to have a look at the torque spec now. Here we go. Torque settings. Coolant pump, bolts and nuts, 8 nanometers of torque. That's 6 pound-foot, so that's not a lot. To give you an idea, my torque wrench doesn't go to 8, it's 28. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a little hand tighten on them, and that should cover us. Thought I'd give you an update as I'm putting it all back together. You can see the belt's back on again. Just getting the order of things right, putting the engine mounting bracket back in place, not bolted on, then putting the flywheel on, then the belt, just so it's all in order and all in place. Those are tightened up as well. I'm filling the coolant system back up again. Now what I'm doing is I'm filling the expansion bottle up quite near the top, and then this hose here is quite a good hose to squeeze and pump, and what you'll find is your coolant level will then start to go down out of the expansion tank. This is the second fill I've done, not a full bottle, and now you see the coolant is up above the line. But if I now pump this, you can hear there's air in this pipe, and as I do that, and actually what you can sometimes do is just let go, and what it'll start to do is it'll start to siphon its way around. You can also pump up the pipe down here as well, which is from the bottom of the radiator leading up to the thermostat, but because that's uphill, you're not going to get an awful lot coming through that way. It's not too bad an engine to bleed. I've done this a few times in the past, and it does bleed itself quite well, but you can see the level's gone down again. If I pump it again, because I can feel that this pipe has emptied once again. And a few minutes like this, just helping, rather than just running the pump and trying to prime the system, it does make it easier. Well, now I've done that, I think it's about 4 or 5 times, and now the pipe is staying hard. You can't hear too many air bubbles, there are a few, and the level is staying about midway, and I can hear fluid starting to go around the system. So I'm going to check for leaks, see if I can see any drips or any water coming out from anywhere around where I've done the work just before. And then we're going to make sure that everything's clear. What I've done is I've hand turned the crank just to make sure that the belts and pulleys are all moving freely and working correctly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start the engine up. I've reconnected all the sensors. Start the engine up and just let it idle just to get a little bit of water through the system, turn it off and just check for leaks again before we run it up to temperature. So what I've done is I've had the engine running a few minutes. I've cleared the previous fault, because it did store the previous fault code and it turned the cooling fan on immediately, but I think that's just the previous code. The light's gone out now and the cooling fan is turned off. Now I'm watching it on my diagnostics here to see what the... It's difficult to get you a view of what's going on. Let me see if I can get you a view here. Showing the temperature, we're at 61 degrees. Now I know that the thermostat on this is quite high. I think it's around about 100 degrees, 90 to 100 I think, before the thermostat fully opens on these. So I'm just going to watch and let the temperature climb up and keep an eye in case we have any fault lights or any warnings come up. But so far it's running quite nicely. Now also, if I turn the temperature to hot in the car and turn the fan on here, I'm getting nice hot air coming out, which is a good sign, because that shows that the hot coolant is circulating the system. Now I'm going to turn that back off because I do want the temperature of the car to go up, because I want to check that the thermostat will open and that it's bled fully. So that's going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to let it warm up. So far as well, checking underneath, we can't see any leaks or problems or anything, which is great news. If you're like me and you're doing this job and you think that the engine is taking forever and you're thinking the temperature is climbing, looking at this, so this is the 1.2 petrol and it's the wax capsule. If we go along, you can see the temperature is 103. That's the thermostat opening temperature, which is quite high. Obviously if you've got one of the different engines, there's the other temperatures there. So 103 is what we're looking for. Let's go and have a look. Cooling fan hasn't come on yet. No fault lights, everything looks good under there. I've put the cap back on because the temperature's getting high and I want the system pressurized. Let's just have a look. Oh, we've just gone 103, 104, you can see on the diagnostics. So that thermostat should be opening somewhere about now. Now, give or take a little bit because it is a wax pellet one. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to see whether this pipe here, yeah, that pipe there's still cold, so I don't think it's starting to flow through yet. I think give it another few minutes and should start to feel that warm up. That's just the top of the radiator hasn't warmed up yet, so I don't think it's fully flowing through the radiator yet. We're just about at the wax temperature for the thermostat to open, so I'll give it another few minutes and check again. Just quickly catch it here. You can see the max there is at 107 and you can see the temperature is now falling quite rapidly. And that suggests the thermostat is now opened. Now if I carefully touch the little bit of exposed radiator here, yep, that's starting to get warm. And this pipe here, yep, that's starting to get warm. So that looks like it's now starting to flow through the thermostat quite nicely. I'm going to keep it running a bit longer because I do want it to make sure that it runs through this system fully. Make sure we don't have any leaks. Gets the system nicely up to temperature. Probably wait until the cooling fan kicks in as well to make sure that if it does keep going too high, actually it's not going to go too high, is it? We can see it's successfully dropping the temperature. We're down to 100, 99. That is dropping the temperature really nicely. That is looking good. I'll let it run a little bit longer, turn it off, and then take a look for leaks, being careful that it's all going to be incredibly hot. And I think that's where I'm going to leave this video now. You saw the process of changing the water pump and the thermostat on our 1.2 Petrol Corsa. Good news, that has solved it. The old pump, it's actually just down here. You can see it's in a bad state. This is all disintegrating. So it's obvious that that was our problem, which is great news. It's always good news when you get through something and find a fault that you knew you were going to find. But it does give you a bit of encouragement when it actually shows up as obvious as that. So that's our Vauxhall Corsa going back on the road very, very shortly. My daughter will be pleased because she's been lost without her car. And hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a thumbs up and a like below, and a subscribe if you like videos like this and more coming very soon on the channel.